All right, y'all. It is today's Monday the 30th, and in the interest of doing this asynchronously, as we've been told to do, a little hard to have a discussion-based class asynchronously, but we're gonna try. So probably the way this process is gonna work is that I will do a quick a recorded lecture like this. I will link that in the Canvas site along with the readings, or there may be a TED Talk YouTube video, something like that. And then I'll post a discussion that we can have, hopefully a nice virtual discussion. So a discussion with a few questions will be posted in the module, and everyone can log in when they can and respond to the questions, respond to one another, allow for hopefully a decent online conversation. So that's kind of how we're going to approach this. The way we're going to start today is really focusing on this idea of communication and the responsibility that we have to be responsible consumers of information. We hear a lot about fake news, and there's a lot, you hear stories of bias in the news, and how one news channel spins things one way and another news channel spins things the other way, and we're losing the capacity to communicate with one another because we're not even agreeing on basic facts. We're not agreeing on science. Where everything is being distorted through a particular lens. And so it's incumbent upon us to be responsible consumers of information, to take the time to do research and check multiple sources when we're reading a news story, not just take what we hear at face value. So we need to understand that a lot of the news that we're getting is really driven by interest more than trying to get the facts out. And so we have to take responsibility for ourselves and how we approach our communication. And it's incumbent upon us as well not to share false information, not to share. It's so easy now to post something onto social media without actually reading the article or doing any kind of fact checking, if you will. And so a lot of misinformation gets spread very, very quickly. And so it's important for us to not just take responsibility for our own knowledge and understanding, but to take responsibility for what we share, to make sure that we're not part of the problem ourselves in spreading disinformation and misleading information. So we have to own that, and we can't just cry foul at the fake news media and whatever that they're trying to get us. We have to be responsible for ourselves and ensure that we are taking the time to make sure that the information we share with our friends and loved ones is accurate. So there's a phrase that says, a lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still getting its boots on. It's attributed to Mark Twain, but its history goes back much farther than that. But it's true. And we see that with social media, especially, that these stories get posted and information spreads, and then a day later, 2 days later, the facts come out or something different comes out, that story doesn't get nearly the coverage of the original story. And so the readings for today that I wanted y'all to look at are 3 different news stories, all about the same thing, but I want you to kind of look at the perspectives and see how the headline can influence how you think about the facts in the story. So this first one here, jobless rate rises to 8.3%, hiring picks up but still falling short. So, and then you read the first paragraph there, the unemployment ticked up, reflecting a stagnant economic picture. And so this is pretty, shows a pretty negative perspective, right? That the unemployment rate isn't increasing, even though this good news of hiring picking up is there, but it's worded in a way that makes it seem, pretty negative. Then we look at, let me find it here, the next story. And U.S. economy's job engine revved up in July. So a much more positive spin on the facts. So makes it, puts the spin on the number of jobs that were created. So the first paragraph here, U.S. employers created 163,000 jobs in July, the most in 5 months. But the jobless rate edged higher, leaving the impression intact that the economy is just muddling along. So they're taking the same numbers, the same information, and putting a much more positive spin on it. So you can see, same news story, same information, different headlines, different leads make it seem like a whole different set of information, even though it's based on the same data. So this is the kind of thing that we're talking about when we talk about being aware of potential bias, being aware of where information is coming from, and actually looking for the full picture and the full facts of a story. So here's Reuters with the same information again. U.S. hiring picks up, but not enough to sideline Fed. So a little bit more neutral there. They say that yes, hiring has picked up, but there are still issues. So trying to make a more balanced, nuanced picture of what's happening. And so just so y'all know, this first news story here, this is 2012, so it was when Barack Obama was president. And so this first headline here is from Fox News, which is seen as a more conservative news channel. So their spin is it's bad, things are bad, because they don't want to give credit to President Obama for improvements that are happening versus, this is Reuters, so it's kind of the more straight news perspective. And then the more positive one, this U.S. economy's job engine revved up, is from MSNBC, which leans liberal. So you have, again, same news, same information, 3 different perspectives. And so that just highlights, again, the importance of gathering our own information, looking at information we get with a critical eye, and making sure that we're evaluating the data before we start making decisions, and certainly before we start sharing information. As we've seen with coronavirus happening right now, you can, even minute to minute in the news that you read, the headlines that you see, you can whipsaw between everything's going to be fine in 2 weeks to holy crow, we're going to be on lockdown for 6 months. And it's really easy to get confused. It's really easy to be overwhelmed by the information that we're collecting. And so what I would encourage all of you to do, especially now in this psychotic news period that we're in, is to back away sometimes. Just turn off the TV, turn off the social media, step away from the deluge of information that we get. And when we do start looking at the news, when we do start looking at stories, especially on social media where it's so easy to share false information, I want you to take the time to really be responsible in how we evaluate information, how you share information, how you think about news and other information that you're receiving, and to have that critical eye to make sure that we're not part of the problem, that we are sharing information that's solid, and that we are a source of good information to the people around us, and not sharing bad information. So anyway, that's it for the lecture. I mean, such as it is. And again, look at that online conversation, and we will see how that goes. Take care.